Popola will tell you about the literature review and other things. But since I have this on slide, I think I'll just use it. Can I have it? Can I have a... So I said to the program officer, I'll bring out my file, and he said he couldn't find. He said, and now they said he said what the topic is overview of literature review, but what you have here is science of literature review. I probably ask yourself the same question, and I'm not blaming you. I hold myself responsible for the confusion, because when you use the word science, it's about logic. And believe me, what people do in literature review is totally things that are not grounded in science. But there's a science to literature review. And that was why when I did this earlier, I decided I'm going to talk around the science of literature review. Is it connecting? Femi reminds me, tomorrow evening, let's go out for, let's take you out tomorrow evening. I hope you're in town. Nobody says he's living in Akure. This training is taking place in Ondo, and everybody must be in Ondo in the evening time. Some people know who I'm talking about. They know themselves. I didn't care. I'm not talking about you. What's the problem? Should I go on without chill? You're not supposed to be checking battery when I'm in class. Eh? If you are going to war, it's not in the middle of the war. You check if your gun is good. All right, let's go on. They will meet us. I only hope I can finish in one hour. There are 3 things I want to talk about. When we talk about literature review, what exactly are we talking about? What are the approaches to the review? And finally, how do we write the review? So let's start with this. I said to you last week that when somebody is working with me as a research student, as supervisor, my project, like when you are talking around, I'm doing part 2, I'm doing master, I'm doing PhD, I always insist that you must have read the literature before you do any other thing. And I said that without reading literature, nothing else makes sense. Nothing else. So let's think about what's a literature review. It's something that happens with a perspective of gaining an understanding of what exists, and to be able to extract from it the essentials that you need that connect your project, that will enable you to then move on to do a result-oriented approach, a result-oriented study. That's my definition. Of course, I'll quote a definition here, but that's the simplest definition I can talk about. But let's read this definition. Let's go. Can you call Dayo Sholanke to provide tea? I think people need to wake up. Why coffee or something? All right, can you read this like people have had coffee this morning? It's also good. If you come to your sleep, let's read this together. You know, many people take literature review to mean just literature survey, because the word review says I am interrogating it to draw out what I need. All right, there are different kinds of review. I got this. I think you are the one that sent this to me before. Yeah, I should have put his name somewhere there, but it was not the one that produced it, so it's not. The point I want to make with all this, and you know, remember my earlier sentence, we want to talk about this kind of systematic review. Go and talk to him, not me. But there's a reason why I want to show this, because many times when we talk about review, we want to take it as generic, but that And that's why I like to talk about science of it, because there are several dimensions of review in our time. And one of the best things you can do actually when you are doing a survey, when you are doing your work, is to look for systematic review that have been published on that area. Because it's a collection of thoughts, ideas, methods, results, just put together in one place. So when I'm doing work, the first thing I want to look for are what are the systematic reviews that have taken place, so that I can in one place get it. And this whole thing, I don't mean that you read it. That's the point, because you can't read it. But the point I want to make here is this: look, there are several ways to think about it, and that each of them has demands, both in terms of technicals and in terms of time. For example, if you can read this, for those who have their glasses, it says, let me read it for you. It said, do you want to gather the evidence on a particular topic? If it's yes, do you have 3 more people working on it? If it's yes, do you have 1 year to 1.5 years to complete the review? If it's yes, then there is a broad topic or multiple research question. If it's yes, they just do a scoping review. So when my students in IFE, they are publishing a journal, and they wrote me, they said they want to do a review. I said, what kind of review? They said they want to do a scoping review. I said, when are you publishing your journal? They just need more time. I said, yeah. So I sent them this. I said, take a look at this and come to a fresh new conclusion. But if all you want to do, just want to look, you don't need to gather all the evidence available. You just want to pick a couple of, just provide a quick survey, a quick overview. Then what you are doing is the narrative review, which is what ultimately we do, and we call a review. So there are several types of review, and therefore there are rapid review, there are scoping, there are umbrella, and we need to understand all that dimension as young researchers, so that when you are talking about review, it's clear in your mind what you are trying to do, and it's clear to those you are communicating with the kind of review you have in mind. Oh, it goes on, meta-analysis, all that. But to get this, I think I should put the email address there so I can go online and search this. And there's not anybody is teaching this class, by the way. That's not available online. I said one of the greatest things about being a scholar in this generation is that so much information is at your tip. All you need to do is be able to stretch yourself to get it. All right, so if you think about what this is in terms of your research work, that you can think about this as an academic write-up that summarizes and critically, I'm waiting for you to complete this, the word, critically what? Critically analyzes and evaluates previous research work on the subject, and then presenting this in an organized way. Of course, you are doing research informed by research questions, and therefore the literary review is not in void but in context of what your own research agenda, research questions are all about. What it is not, can we start from you? Yeah, what is number one?
A descriptive list of summaries of books or articles.
If there's something I have sent to people more than any other thing, you know, I review part 2 work, all this, is this one slide I've sent to people a lot. When I see the first time I see this page is going to describe, but sometimes I see people write, Shade said, the Jonathan said, Joella said, I'm like, no, this is not a literary review. So literary review is not a descriptive list of material or even ideas that you gather. Number 2.
An exhaustive bibliography on everything ever written on the topic you need on the topic you need to.
You must not come to this class without your glasses. I'm going to call. Once you finish, I'm going to call your husband. If you don't have money, let him take you to an ophthalmology.
I have a glasses, but change the lens, and I'm not able to do it.
It's the same thing we're talking about. Let me tell you a story of the first exam. Shola is in class. I should be careful about the story I tell this morning. The first exam I did in IFE at a PhD level was in social sciences. I was a young lecturer, and I called Professor Orubuloye A famous guy in the field of HIV, past professor of Ekiti State University, to be the examiner. Incidentally, we worked together on the National AIDS Survey. He led the first volume. I was leading the second one. So he said, oh, Chef Prodigy is not in effect. Just call him. I'm not available. So I came and I took the work. He sent the work to me. I won't tell you what department. It's not in his department, by the way. And I got this book. Don't mind me. It's as big as this. HIV, Kineko. And I opened it. I thought I was reading a textbook. HIV, immunology, HIV, microbiology, HIV. So I told myself, there's no way this person will pass this exam. In fact, I cancelled like 2/3 of the page. I just like, I was so angry. I just was scared. When I really got to the exam, the external examiner came in. I was first one that came. The supervisor is somebody I know, very senior professor. But when the external examiner came in, he first of all prostrated to the supervisor. I knew the exam had finished at that level. I knew that whatever I'm coming to do here is just a joke. But we sat down. So, and he said we should start. I was the internal, external. He's the external. So I started by asking the person, somebody in social science, please tell me the immunology of HIV. I said, that's not my field. I don't know what. Okay. Please tell me the drug treatment. I'm sure you must have been thinking this one was the wicked. It just want me to fail. So I kept on asking science questions, never anything in social sciences. So at the time, he was very frustrated. So I said, sir, why do you think I'm asking you these questions? I said, I'm taking this question from the book you submitted. Because sometimes the idea is, let me write everything I can find. No. If so, every time you are fine. Sometimes I fight with examiners when I submit my students go for part 2, and I tell them, no, focus on your attention. Don't. And sometimes I'm like, no, that's what I insisted on. Because it's not to write about everything, but it's directed by the research agenda we have now. That doesn't mean you cannot include some general backgrounds, but it is a focused writing driven by research objectives. All right, what's the problem?
It's flipping hibernate quickly.
Oh, why don't you just go to your setting and change the hibernation? But no, leave it. So that way I won't tell many more stories. And once this hibernate is telling me, I'm telling too much stories. Like I quickly come back. All right, so, oh my God. Hey, Azan, when I finish my work, can you come back? Let me just finish. I have so much to do today. As I'm here, my head is in like 4 places. It's not PDF. Is it PDF that thing?
Yes.
Okay. I'll give you the. I'll look for the. Okay. All right. Put it back on. Oh, was it on PDF? I'm sorry. I'm surprised. That's strange. What is not? It is not an FA. It's very newspaper stuff. One of the newspapers I like to read is Guardian. And the reason why I like to read this is those who write at the back page. Danagbese, Reepu, and they make very nice reading. But that's not a teacher review. It's their opinion and their argument about what is wrong and right in Nigeria and how it can be wrong and right more. You know? So that's not what it is. So we have talked about what it is. We have said it gives you are surveying what's available. You are critically reviewing and evaluating what are available, and you are organizing those information available, structured, directed, led by your research agenda. So what's the purpose of literary review? Can we read together? Number one.
Gives readers easy access to research on a particular topic by selecting pursuits that are relevant, meaningful, important, and varied, and summarizing them in one form.
So it's not about selecting any article. That's the last thing I find when people write literature review. All the jabajantis they can find, meaningful and meaningless. Let me tell you another true story. I think I should start writing a book on these stories. True story. That I read a part 2 person I was sent to evaluate a book, and this person wrote. He said that young people who are, he said that adolescents had been shown to have less reasoning capacity than children. So it was adolescents 10 to 19, there were children 5 to 6. And like, this is a doctor, going to be a specialist, and he put reference. And believe me, I'm not sure you, but believe me, when people send me books to read for exam, I read the references. I look at the references and I go and download them. I don't read all of them, but because every time I read the book, I want to learn something. Here is the book, they give me this book and they give me 25,000. So that's how I read the book. No, because give me an opportunity to learn. That's, for me, the most exciting about it. I went to check the references. And they were talking about adolescents with some dimensions of mental health problems, particular category. And I said that even they didn't say so, is it not common sense? Yeah. But because people are like, just they don't even read the work, they look at the abstracts, they just take one sentence, say, take one sentence, throw it there, and then they put reference. If you have not read the work, you should not quote it. It is academic fraud. Can I repeat that? If you have not read the work and you are quoting it, you are committing academic fraud. So when I go to exam, I like going for exam. You know why? Because it's like fun. I just go for fun. So I see somebody, the first one page of the book or two, he has like 40 references. I'm like, So when I go to the exam, I just leave the book. I say, reference 1 says, Ajagbe Etol talk about. Please tell me about that. I just pick like 10 references. And believe me, before I pick those 10, I will have read those 10. That's why I'll come to the exam printing those 10. Because it just, I mean, by the way, most of my people are exam will pass. That's how this one the pass. Because I always think that exam is part of learning. But just to demonstrate that certain things are totally unacceptable at certain levels. If you cannot open literature review, the first 5 pages, you have 130 references. It's not possible. It means even if you have read all of them, it means you don't understand how to use literature. So it's not just about selecting anything. It's about selecting high quality articles. Now I think I have to. What's her name? Nazan. You better come and stand by this thing. So about anything. All right. Any questions so far? None. It's not everything you have read that you are presenting. What you are presenting is a summary of what you've read and organized in a way that speaks to your issues. Just think that forever. No, just say it doesn't change forever. All right. So, do you understand? Where is the one that I'm talking about? Yeah, the idea is that what we have is a summary of, it's a report, because you are writing. When I say report, I mean, if, for example, you are going to publish your work, your PhD work or master, you have a section called literature review. That's what I mean by a report. But of course, it could be a report that is a publication, because you could publish narrative review, you should publish systematic review, you could publish any of those things. And if you are actually doing a PhD, you should think of publishing your systematic review first before going. In fact, you should think of publishing your protocol before going on. That's too quick way of just getting publication, even though they will not give more than 2/5 for you, but that's okay. It's still part of this picture. And it can give you some interesting feedbacks about what you are trying to do.
You can publish your protocol?
Sure. You will start protocol. Oh, every time. Yeah. In fact, in my computer, until the last couple of years when I started this admin, I have a folder for just research protocols. When I want to write research agenda, I go and read people's protocol that they have written, I have published. In the other words, somebody I reviewed and think it makes sense. So why would I go and read it and pick an idea from it? You can publish your protocol, and people publish protocols.
Just like a research agenda.
Yeah, your research like your research. What's that thing you submit to your paper? Concept note. That, it's published. Yeah. But it's not when you're going to write one thing that anybody publishes. Or when you want to do a work. If I'm talking about a work that has some solid contribution to science. You were at CeHPBE conference. You saw Jonathan Berak making when you only made the presentation. If you go and check, before Jonathan Berak did that work, you will find that protocol on that work published. Because the work was going to use methodology that has not been used, and they wanted to get feedback, they wanted to get bashing from other authors around the world who are subject specialists. And once they survived that was when the end said, wow, we think we are on the solid ground, we can go on. So you can do that. All right, number 2. Where did you stop? All of
We stopped on the first one.
Yeah, I know. Who read last? All of us. Oh, you did? Okay.
Okay. So it describes the relationship of each work to the others and place each work in the context of its contribution to understanding the research problem being studied.
You know, one of the, I think I've told you this story before. I'm not sure. Maybe it's this. I've told this story in the last one weekend or something. I think it was this class. When I was in the University of Washington, and my lecturer gave us materials to read. And then he came to class. And he said, can I have a marker? And he said, you've read the work of, let's call them A, B, C, D author. And he said, let's talk about 2 issues. Let's talk about intensity of intervention. Let's talk about broad dimensions. And he said, Mr. A, around, if you plot it this way, Mr. A's work is here. Please locate the work of other people relative to Mr. A's work. Another work, you must have read Mr. A and know what he says. You know what Mr. B said, and you know where it lies related to this work. Is it overlapping? Is it different? Is it offering a different perspective? Is it aligning? You know, if I start exam this day, that's where I'll start exam. Femi Obile said to me when we were in Lagos, he said, you have always said, if you are chief examiner, you have calculate. That's why you have never become a chief examiner. You know, because that's how to catch them when you give them to read. You just pick one person's work and say, oh, that's true. And that's what happened in literature. Because when you read my perspective, you need to know, is there aligning with other perspective out there in the field? Is it different? How is it different? Why is it different? So it's not just about reading the work. It's also understand that as I'm reading the work, I am getting into a world of authors in the same space. And I was able to see how they relate, how they differ, and why they do. Number 3.
Provides constructive analysis of
sometimes people ask me, must you criticize, must you assess? I say, yeah, you might. But you know, in academia, it's constructive. When I write work, you know, when you are not reviewing work and you're not talking about the methodological issues, you are not truly doing a robust review. Because when a man has published a work and he has studied 13 people and he published in Ondo Journal of Social Sciences, I'm not talking about he has new sociology, qualitative paper. He just surveyed 13 people. I was talking about the type of headache, the kind of gele that people wear to party. You know, you can publish anything, you know that. You can publish the number of shoes that people, color of shoes that just have enough money to publish somewhere. But and that man publishes that, and you want to quote it. Let's say, for example, for any reasons of interest, you must be able to let us know that this man studied only 13 people. And this is how you call it. Otherwise, the weight we put on his work will be unduly more than what his work should contribute. So that's why you must do some criticism, constructive though, because that's what we do in academia. All right. The other thing, you identify new ways to interpret prior research, identify area of prior scholarship, so that you are not just duplicating effort. When you finish your work, and in your not conclusion now, in your discussion, it's like our findings say A is greater than B, in line with all that happened in literature. And our findings say C is less than D, and all that. What is your own contribution? If all you are going to do is agree with everybody in this one, then your paper and your work is useless. Has nothing to add to literature. And that's why you must understand what people have done. So you can understand where the gaps are that you can step into and create a niche for yourself. What else is the purpose of literature? It helps us to identify inconsistencies, conflicts that are existing in the context of what we are doing, and to be able to make sense of them. Why and why not? If somebody had used, if 3 people have studied a phenomenon and they have used different methods, the reason why they are different might simply be the methodological approach. In one of the papers one of my last papers I published, probably that was like when now, last year or year before, on something around abortion. We're doing around abortion estimate in Congo, DRC, and we're looking at, and because there are no adolescent specific abortion records nationally, there are very few studies that have done that, and we saw 2 studies that have talked about abortion rate in DRC, and the figures are not agreeing. The first is to say, who did they talk to? How did they collect it? Once they use different methods, the likelihood that they will arrive at the same thing might be low. Sometimes it might be. And so when you see those controversies, because you've read the work and you've paid attention to the technical details, you understand why the controversies you see may exist. You review gaps, we talk about that, and tells you how you can fill the gap. Many good authors, when they finish their work, they will talk in their conclusion, in their discussion and conclusion, what other areas of work they think is important to close the gap in that area. And that's why it's important to read literature. It provides clue to where future research is heading. It helps you to locate your work within available literature. All right. So let's go. Let's read this together.
Literature reviews are designed to provide an overview of sources used while researching a particular topic and to demonstrate to your readers how your research fits within a larger field of study.
I'm sure this needs no explanation. Does it? No. All right. So we talk about purpose of literature review. I have shown you schematically how you want to find out. You want to say the tea is ready. You know, you can always bring tea to your class. At least my own class. Please bring tea if you want to bring tea. Sometimes I take a bottle of Coke to my class if I want to. If it's going to make you alive. But I tell people in church, that you can bring church coffee to church. I can bring to mosque to you. No, as well you think I'm a very serious person. I am really. I'm not a serious person. Two major forms of literature is one, literature review as a background in your research, thesis, and things like that. But literature can also be an original work of research itself, and that was what I started with, introducing you to through the good work of through the introduction that literature that Bilamin gave me. It can be a valuable work that you can publish on its own. It can be narrative review, it can be descriptive or mapping review, it can be scoping review, it can be aggregative review. If there is now review of reviews, all kinds. It can be critical review. So the more you get to literature, the more you find that there are all kinds of literature. All right, so let's talk about any questions so far. Let's talk about what then makes a good literature review. I think I've opened up the curtain around this, but let's talk a bit more. How? Can somebody read this for me? I'm sorry, no, this is not a good PowerPoint because it's long. But when I put them there, it saves me looking for how to print and give to everybody, and everybody can relate to it. Can somebody read this to me?
Okay. Smith 2000 concludes that personal privacy in their living quarters is the most important factor in nursing home residents' perception of their autonomy. It suggests that the physical environment in the more public spaces of the building did not have much impact on their perceptions. Neither the layout of the building nor the activities available seem to make much difference. John and John Stone make the claim that the need to control one's environment is a fundamental need of life, 2001, and suggests that the approach of most institutions, which is to provide total care, may be as bad as no care at all. If people have no choices or think they have none, they become depressed.
I was going to make you, okay, you've read that, right? Let's read the second one.
After studying residents and staff from 2 care facilities in Calgary, Alberta, Smith came to the conclusion that except for the amount of personal privacy available to residents, the physical environment of these institutions had minimal, if any, effect on their perceptions of autonomy. However, French and Aaron found that the availability of private areas is not the only aspect of the physical environment that determines residents' autonomy. Aaron interviewed 115 residents from 32 different nursing homes known to have different levels of autonomy. It was found that physical structures such as standardized furniture, heating that could not be individually regulated.
So that should be something there that I caught up. I should have put that as so go ahead.
Moreover, Hope 2022, who interviewed 225 residents from various nursing homes, substantiates the claim that characteristics of the institutional environment.
Okay, let's stop. Which of the two makes a better literature review, in your opinion? Why? What do I make sense? The review the other man made no sense.
I think he has a picture of.
Mercy. Go ahead.
I think the second one is giving us a picture of what the previous studies have to say.
Yeah.
And like the other one just looks like reading.
The other one look like the regular thing you write. No, the second one look like the one I write. That one is exhausted.
I also think the second one to give detail on methodology.
Yeah, I give you. In fact, so when you are reading the kind of where you find the work, you're like, oh. In fact, you know the kind of importance to attach to the work. You have to interview people from 32 nursing homes, and they have different. So you understand that this study is crafted in a robust way. And so literature review is not just. I'm going to wait to see if you brought my own cup of coffee or not. You didn't even know. I've always thought you're my friend. Good literature review. Let's go to that. This is another slide. To be honest, I don't remember where I've looked for this work. I can't remember where I got it from. I got it years ago. I've looked for the link. I've sent this to God knows how many. When I go to exam standardly, this is one of the papers I take with me, because it all just more or less crystallizes what makes a good one and a bad one in a simple slide. What makes a good literature review? Number one is a synthesis. Everybody say synthesis. Synthesis. It's a synthesis. Synthesis. Bringing together, aligning their thoughts. You know, it's a synthesis of available research. Number two is what? Critical evaluation. Number three, and depth. Number four, number five. Let's look at what a poor literature review looks like. On the other hand, what's the first thing? And do you know the meaning of anthropography? Anthropography is when you are talking about, you are taking people one by one, and what they say. Jide said we should go to Lagos. Then Jare said it is not Lagos, it's Ekiti. And that's an anthropography. Okay? Anthropography has their place in literature, by the way. Has their place in science. In fact, there are sometimes you go online, you see an bibliography. Somebody has taken all the work done and just dumped them. So if you want a quick look at who had worked somewhere, you know, it's like this morning I opened my laptop, I was looking for something, and I saw one mail from Bukola. That's the friend of Mudele. He's always sending me a list of all professors in Nigerian university alphabetically organized. You know. So that's I think my program asks me. So if I'm looking for somebody, I say it's a professor, I don't know if he's a professor or not. I can look at that list. But if I see the list in court, do I know the field the guy is? Do I know his email? So what's why bothering me? Of course, if you give me the whole compilation of all professors, and Visha exists, by the way. Visha also led and did a good job. So when I'm looking for reviewers for professorial people, that's one of the places I consult. I just go and look for all the professors. But give me a list of alphabetical professors. Maybe useful for some people, but not very useful sometimes. And that's the way an annotated bibliography sounds. Number two is confined to just describing. Jide found, Jare said, Kinikom. It's just description. There's no, as against evaluation. It's just description. There's no critical evaluation. Number three, it's narrow and shallow. Because the guy has not done so much work. All the 10 work he saw, just keep on repeating them. You know, as you look at paragraph 1, you take the name, repeat the paragraph 2. Because he hasn't gone in depth with what is available. Number 4, it has no form or format. And I'll show you very simple examples, hopefully, and then it's constructed in an arbitrary way. All right. So let's go to. We don't have time. So this was the exercise you should have done. Is to go back to those two, and then apply the newcomer's criteria, as to say, okay, let's the content. What should it include? Overview of subject under consideration and division of the work into teams and categories, so that it's organized. So if I'm writing about HIV and I can say, look, this is an overview around HIV, this is the picture. Let's say I'm talking about review of epidemiology. I can say this is the epidemiology, this is the challenge globally, and then move from global to Africa, from Africa to Nigeria, from Nigeria to just organized. And like I said, you need to build, you are building a picture and you're building a synthesis. So you need to show how it works. So it's not as if like this found this, that found that. No. You can say this found this in Nigeria. Similarly, we talk about how to write, have we? Not in this class. Where did I talk about how to write? Last week somewhere. This is the problem of giving too many lectures. You know, you must think about how to link sentences, how to connect them. So you are building a picture in the mind of people. Okay? In conclusion as to which work are best, consider the argument and make the greatest contribution. So you are able to give you understanding about how the various works make a contribution. So what are the approaches? Excuse me. Number one is project problem formulation. What is the problem I am researching? What are the research questions that I'm focusing on? That's where it starts. It's not jumping to go and cache any literature you find. No, that's not. You start with formulating a question that becomes the guide to what you are looking for. Number two, you then look for material having know the direction you are going. Number three, you obtain the materials and you begin to assess them, to evaluate them. Number four, you draw out your analysis and interpretation from what they said. So, you've seen this slide before. Initial question, you find question, final questions. Literature review. So what I'm doing now is going very quickly to these four things. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes, should I continue? Yes. Anybody has a question? So, I've talked about this yesterday and last week about problem formulation. So in literature research, what do you want to do? You want to source this using relevant search engines. That is the first commonsensical. I know that common sense sometimes is not very common. But one of the most commonsensical things, go onto a search. So if you are in this class, you don't know how to use PubMed properly, you have not started at all around research. Bilami, are you doing a class on use of PubMed? Okay. Because you must know how to use PubMed well, not using this Jabojantis thing that you know there are all kind of things you do. I mean, use it properly. Because when you do, you can it gets you the best of the materials, and you know, so this is material to look at. Alright. One of the things I do, particularly when I read systematic review, when I'm reading somebody's work, I'm looking at his references, so I can go and use it to find other work. When you say this work did this, I wish I could bring my PhD work for you, not to boast about it, but just to show you that this is what I do. I have my personal. You see me circling and then go to look for those material. In fact, one of the things that I'm always afraid of, if I don't have time, is that when I go to look for literature, I spend unbelievable hours. When I go to John Hopkins those days, and I used to do work in John Hopkins, everybody will close and the cleaner will always come. The cleaner will come and find me in the room. All I'm doing is those days you don't have many materials now. So I'll just, if I go, I'll download hundreds of materials. Just download. As I'm reading one work, I'll find some, I'll download. Because at the end of the day, it pays off. When you read these materials, you master what your field is all about. So, search through them. The other thing to do is that you can contact authorities in the field. If you know people have done work, you can talk to them, and particularly they are not Africans. No, they are not African. If you write a typical American and European and say, I saw your work, can you send me a copy? Believe me, in 80% you get it in 24 hours. So when I'm looking for paper and they say go and pay $22, I don't worry. I just go and look for the man's email address and send it to him. He said, there's a guy who was working on the assets of among young people and his relationship to sexual behavior. Blah, blah. I just wrote him. If you see what the guy said to me, you won't believe it. Send me all his papers, send me the instrument to use, and then if you have more questions, please come to me.
Is it not possible that it might be because you are one of the people who is
No, I'm not always get out. No, okay, let me tell you a different story. I was with Professor Omobowale. I don't know if anybody know him in Ibadan. Were you at that meeting?
Yes, I was at the meeting.
Omobowale, the one in, not the one in public health, the man in head of in English language, Center for Distance Learning now. He told us, he said he was going to do his PhD. That he felt that God was leading him to talk about the issue of earth humanities, the connection between earth, literature and earth, and that they had not worked on in that area in Nigeria. And then one of his friends came and said, he saw a book. I said, you went to pick that book. And he wrote one of the guys that they mentioned in that book. He said, just pick one person. He said, I'm glad that he said the guy sent him a carton of materials. A carton. It was a whole carton of materials. That's the mindset of scholars in Nigeria. The mindset of scholar is teach onibata, ama for boni. That's their mindset. That's the mindset for the villages, not for academia. Academia is a global enterprise. So people will be glad because people want to be cited. So why will you not send you his work so I can cite him? So going to contact people who are authorities is very global. Believe me, when I was doing my PhD, I wrote so many guys. I just have materials. People just say materials. And that's one of the things to do if you are doing literature review. All right. Number 3 is that we then No, it's good. In fact, one of the things I also do when I used to have more time, until when people like Facebook really start pulling me to come on, this one now. What I do now is take your pen and be signed up from morning to night. Sign. That's what I do now. I do research. You know, one of the things I used to do, I can do that for PubMed. In PubMed, you can send them a selection of articles that they should be sending you every week. So every article around my area of interest, you just get deposited in my box. So even without doing anything, I can see all the topic. I'm like, oh, this one interests me, and I'll go there and read. Okay. Now, you have to select and you have to search and choose your materials, and there are so many you can use. So many. Using a combination of approaches can be extremely useful, depending on the area you're working. I work in adolescent and sexual reproductive health. I'm sure that's not news to anybody. I work in maternal and reproductive health. When I'm doing many works, you know where I go? I don't even look for published materials. I don't look for peer reviewed. I go to UNICEF. UNICEF has a place called Innocenti Center in Italy. They produce, theoretically sound paper, frameworks around how to investigate children health. I just go to Innocenti Center. They have published work. Innocenti is I-N-O, like innocent with I. I just go there. I download. If I want to talk about what is the sexual clinical in Nigeria, I don't use other people's work. The first place I go to the UNFP website. So why am I saying that? Just to show you that there are other useful sources beyond just the peer review that you find in PubMed. So you can do that. Where is that one now? That's part of the grey literature. You know, conference proceedings. When I was a young scholar, one of the things I do when I go to conferences or when I say where I was going to conference, I say, give me the conference proceeding. You know, half of people throw it away. I then begin to look what they publish in my area. How the news is coming up in my area. And I use it to begin to define. Believe me, this thing I'm telling you, I wish one day I'll bring my laptop and I open it. I see my laptop, the way it's organized. I just keep on possible research that I'm going to do. You know, I keep on taking things, I just keep it in there. Some of them I never did though. If I done all of them now, by now I got new. But I just keep on. So it's not the day the wise man dig a well before he needs the water. It's not the day you need the water. That's the problem of most Nigerian young scholars. If the day you need it, and you're like now running around, what topic should I work on? If you are reading consistently, you will be building your resources also consistently. Believe me, when I read people's work and I like their expression, I copy it and go and put it somewhere. But if I use it directly, it's going to be plagiarism. But I'm going to study how to use it so that one day I can use it well. I do the plagiarism. Okay, so use many materials. Don't be limited. All right. So then you have to need to effectively review it. What you need to do? Focus your question. Decide, I will look at all the sources you use. What are the most appropriate? And then divide this into smaller bits that more or less guide you. Your concept, if for example I'm talking about user safety and reproductive health issue and the effect of alcohol use. Of course, alcohol use is a concept that I will find material about. How did they define alcohol use? Did they talk about a number of glasses taken per day? Did they talk about the effect, the tautological effect? How did they use it? That's a concept. I need to build that concept. Oh, when we talk about adolescent, it's yes, 10 to 19. But in the literature I'm looking at here, were they looking at 10 to 19? Are they looking at people who are more in the 18 to 19 so that they will bypass the whole issue about ethical approval? When I say sexual and reproductive health, what exactly did they look at? Because, like Mercy will tell you, she was doing one work on sexual and reproductive health. I think she asked, like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12, God knows how many. You asked, I think the 12 you want to study, or do you want to just focus on maternal health there? So you have to build those concepts and then tie them together to help you begin to get a good grasp of your own work. And then revise your research as necessary, replicate other sources. There are several online databases, but because you're in Africa, there is one that is there are only two, more or less. The first one, and Google Scholar. But if you go to someone like you can probably get 2 members, maybe other ones. I'm sure, and this is not exhaustive. Okay, when I'm in Europe, you probably will get this more. When I go out, that's how when I go out, I sit down on their library. I just download them, things I will never find there. Okay. But Google Scholar is useful, but every time I tell people the first place I will go is PubMed. Google itself is also useful, by the way. I got from Google Scholar because it can give you access to great literature. That's one. But it's like you want to go to Sokoto. I want to go to Yaba in Ondo. Google will first take you on the way to Ore. It will turn you back to the way to. Sorry, I don't just because there's so much on web, and that's the problem about using it. That's why it's always better to focus on the one that are academic to start with. Then you can, if you have find time, you want to look from great literature, you can go around and look at those ones. All right. Like I said here, Google Scholar is also popular, but it's not specialized. Okay. One of the good things, one of the good ways you can know how to use this is to be able to use the mesh, which is medical subject headings. It can be very useful to search. I don't have the time and element to teach. I've never been asked to come and teach how to use PubMed. The good thing is that there is help. The good thing is that there is tutorial. So you don't tell anybody to teach you. Hello. And that's the main way I put this here. The tutorial is available, free of charge. You can learn how to use it much better than you're using it today. I can build your Boolean, the method and tell. So then you look at the data evaluation. What are you talking about here? What are the evidence that are provided? What is the methodology that is used? How objective is it? How persuasive is it? What's the value? So, what are the critical questions you should ask when reading? Number 1, what's the first one? Now you have T, so there are no excuses. Number 1 is what?
Who is the author?
You remember the story that Professor told you about a group of people in Yaba that wrote a paper and put the name of Eshito, and people said, no, this doesn't sound like physician. Go back and go and talk to physician. So what are you looking for? They know the author that look, if this guy writes, we know who he is. And that's why top scholars can make bold and sometimes very controversial statements. Whereas if you're a new scholar and make it, they just knock your head. You keep quiet. Nobody will publish your work. You know. But that doesn't mean that if you have a very good idea, it will publish. Who is the author talking about? Does he have credibility in the field? Do we know him? That doesn't answer all the questions. But when I want to do work, look, I've been telling you about how I organize my work. Almost every work published by my mentor, Bob Brown, almost every work, I have a folder in my computer for every work he has published that I can see. I just download it because I trust his work and I like to read his work to see what are the new thoughts is out. Who is the author? Okay. Number 2. So in this publication, what exactly is the argument? What is the point he's trying to make? Number 3.
What findings and conclusions are made?
You know what I'm getting at here? That when I take a literature, an article, these are the things I'm paying attention to. So you are not coming to read an article with an open mind. There's nothing like that. You read it with a critical mind. There are questions you are asking yourself as you are reading it. Who is the author? Can it be depended on? Do somebody I know has done other work? So number 2, what is his main argument here? Number 3, what are his main finding? Number 4. Sometimes the evidence are so watery. When I read people around there, but I'm like, who will quote this one? One guy applied to Unimed once. So he said he wanted to be, I should give you an associate professor. So I said registry should offer him lecturer 1. So he came back and wrote me and said, he has 30, is it 30 or 50? I can't remember. And those days I used to work with water. Water was not an academic day. I've taught what I want to do. Just go and search. This guy has 30 works. Maybe only one showed in any place where nobody had ever quoted him. So I wrote a report for him on himself and his article. So when I sent it back to him, he said, thank you, I will accept the lecture award. Because when you are writing things that doesn't have substance, who is going to quote it? Okay? And so, it's not just about writing. The evidence wants to be robust so that people can use your work. Number 5. Last week, Professor Sam, Femi Miller and myself were at Lagos doing a training. And I was talking about secondary data analysis. And I remember telling people, I told you a story of a young man that came, that came to present something on one regression method. And one conference. I said, please, did you check for multicollinearity? And like, multicollinearity. Because half of the people that do okay don't know what they are doing. They don't understand what they're doing. So by the time you read their work critically, you understand. This guy ran regression, he has no idea what regression is about. He has no idea what the assumption behind it. Somebody has collected data on 70 people and he said he ran regression. Which regression? Or you look at the confidence interval. It's as far from there to Akure. The first thing to do is you look. What this work says is that you don't have enough sample size. So you must critically look at the evidence. But if you don't know, how will you check? You know what about all Obongwe or Boko? That's a very common phenomenon in our academic environment. So, nothing. Does not make any assumption. Sometimes, depending on the kind of work you do. So when you work on abortion in abortion circle, and we are talking about incidents of abortion, the methodology has a lot of built-in assumptions, a lot of assumptions. In fact, the entire thing about how do you generate data around abortion is assumption over assumption over assumption over assumptions. So if you don't understand those assumptions they are making, you will be quoting figures as if they are written by God. So you must understand what are the assumptions in this study. I was saying, it was this class that was asking me about something. I was using the example of what we did in for Ondo State government when they did an intervention. Was it in this class about BE? It was in Lagos without what's Lagos? This Lagos, you know, Lagos was exciting. We had a great time in Lagos. Fantastic time we had there. And we had to make assumptions. So when people say BE worked and maternal mortality was reduced, I look at them like this and I will laugh. Because we wrote it, and we made assumptions. But people don't even know the assumption we made. Did it work? Yes, we believe so. But this was a work that has no baseline. There was no baseline. But we have to make an assumption as to how we can, I didn't collect maternal mortality figures, but its aim is to reduce maternal mortality. So what are the assumptions that we made to come to? If those assumptions are wrong, our conclusion will be wrong. And I can tell the assumption we made there, I think was solid. You know, what will I say? That it's not my work, and I got paid for it. You know, if you know me now, I'm not afraid to even talk about my own work. When I find that it's not as distinct, you know, as you grow, sometimes you do some work, like, but you should make. Who publishes it? You don't put it in your CV again. Somebody should know. You know, we all grow step by step. That's life. That's like we all grow. So you must understand when people have made the assumption. What are the assumptions? Because it helps you to put the findings in perspective. What's the next thing? What's that not being said? I tell obvious that like, this guy is hiding something. You know, sometimes you see a table, you see some deviations, but because the guy wants parsimony, so I can get. My wife was examining a candidate. You know, every time she asks a candidate to examine in surgical field, I always read part of the methodology. And somebody wants to test if honey works against something. And you can see the guy walking towards an answer. You know, you also test people who have low level of trauma and use honey for their wound. And those who have high trauma use other method. I'm like, before I'm called exactly. Or the example I gave in Lagos. A resident doctor in Lagos called me recently and said he wants to do a work, he wants to do intervention, educational intervention to change behavior. And they asked him, how long? He said, in 3 months, we'll teach them. I'm like, that's what the theory of behavior change tells you. In 3 months, if that's all of us will have changed. We have been here in Nigeria. You know how many times we preach about corruption? How many of us have changed? No, because behavior change won't happen in 3 months. So, but how will you teach them? If the answer not clear, you taught them. They will increase in knowledge. Even if they don't increase, we will increase it by yourself by figure. You know, so you see, are there things that are actually there, but you see the guy not seeing it? Are there things that he's trying to avoid confronting? Is there bias? Of course, if you don't know what bias is, you can't look for bias. You know, we talk about 2 classes of bias. Classical epidemiology. You talk about the population bias, I talk about the information bias. The example I used to give when I used to teach epidemiology, epidemiology was what I used to teach those days when I first came back, and it's my first law actually. Epidemiology, I'll give you an example. I said, look, you come to do a survey at home this morning to look at sickness, how common sicknesses are. Of course, by coming to the house at this time, those who are not sick will gone out. Abi?
That's true.
If you are sick, if you are not sick, what am I going to be doing at home now? So, and I then report the proportion of sickness is this. You know, it's not true, because that figure, that people, they are a biased population. They are not random. They are not representative. You go and do a survey and say, look, because of convenience, I'm doing a survey on arthritis. I have selected only those who are on ground floor. Where when the person living with arthritis live? Upstairs. You know, but if people don't understand what bias means, they cannot look for them and control for them. And that talks about knowing science, the potent science. You know my talking about potent science. It was in this class, so don't look at me like that. This class I was talking about how to do, when we are talking about proposals, and I was talking about number 1, powerful ideas. Number 2, potent science. You know in this class?
Yes.
Femi, must do an exam today. The one I taught last day, forgot to know. You know, if you don't know your science, you can't identify if the guy has bias or not. You know, information bias, the kind of people, and I think, is there a confounder here that is not correct for? Is there other issues that you should be looking for? Okay. How is the text relevant to your project or assignment? To your own. Because ultimately that's what you are all after. And finally, how does this link with other text that you read? If the results are not agreeing, what's the issue? You want to go back and look at methodology, you want to look at a few other things. Alright. Sometimes it might be useful to synthesize our information. This takes time. But if you can do this, it helps. Where people use something like an Excel and you summarize everybody. When you do that, one of the key issues that you can very quickly see commonalities in findings and see differences. So assigning, and it's not compulsory to use this heading, you can use more heading to say what's the author, what's the year, what type of source. When you do this well, you don't need to be looking at your papers again because you have the summary of all you need to write here. But it takes time. But you know, it's like, and that's life. If you dig shallow foundation, you will build only bungalow. If your foundation is deeper, you can build more rapidly and can build higher. So if you are taking the time to do this, time of writing becomes much faster to go. All right. You can categorize your evidence into teams. This came from my thesis, by the way. I work on sexting in my PhD. I was looking at relationship with certain mental health related issues and sexual behaviors. And at that point in time, everybody uses the word sexting for different things. If you just send graphic picture that is has sexual connotation, is sexting. If you send a message that has connotation of sexual issues, is sexting. No. So the first time to ask myself is, what exactly is sexting? That as people have used it. Because when somebody had combined picture with words and his prevalence is higher than the other places, it's probably because of the combination of how he has defined it as against other person. Does that make sense? So I have to ask myself, what are definition? Images only. And I look at those who define theirs with images only. Ferguson 2011, Glader 2012, blah, blah, blah. Then I look at those who define their own as messages and images. So when I began to then talk about prevalence of sexting in different school population, I don't need to mix apple and orange. I classify those who did by image alone, I then have the table for those who did by different methods, so that it's clear that I'm talking about two different things, even though they are similar concepts. So I then said to myself, prevalence, okay, among young people, less than 50. I was looking at those who are going to say less than 50 and those who are going to say more than 50. And if you find out those who are less than 50 are mostly those who use images only. You know, so things like that. You know, this thing will always fall. And then I was talking about, okay, what are those who found association between sexting and depression? So once I have something like this, I always tell my resident doctors, you can write your discussion without having a result. Don't quote me. If you are pressed for time, if you have classified the finding, all you need to know is where did your finding fall onto. If it's less than 50% of sexting, I know those to quote because I already have classified them according to the work of strength board. If I look at it and it's found association, I already have known those who have association. So I'm saying, oh, that's what Temple found too. And I go and look at Temple, so. But I'm not on my hands like a scattered brain in the middle of writing discussion. This is how I approach it in my own real life. No, I don't, not the theory. In real life, this is how I approach it. All right. Let's talk about how to analyze and interpret. Organize your literature. You can organize it thematically, chronologically, geographic context, or methodologically. Okay. How do you do? Use evidence, be selective, summarize, synthesize, keep your own voice, otherwise it becomes plagiarism. Use caution when paraphrasing. One model is go from known, unknown, question, and methods. If you are going to structure, you can start introduction, the one that is distantly related, then move from there to the one that are closer to what you are doing, and then go to one that are peculiar to your work. You know, just what matters is a way of thinking and a way of guiding. So when I'm reading your work, you know, it's like telling stories. I tell people all the time, good writing is like telling stories. You know how you tell stories. You will have thought about it. Jacob must go to the market first before he carry him, and before they cut him, and before they punish him. They can't punish him before he stole the yam now. I mean, so it's silly. Think about it. So just you have to structure it that way. If it's storytelling in a different way. Topic from broad to narrow. You can go from broad to narrow. This again came from my work, by the way. I just copied and dumped it. Young adult and computer-mediated communication, global and national context. Because there's something that goes back to sexing. It is the computer-mediated communication. That's okay. The evolution of the terminology, the concept, then the characterization and typology, then sexting in essence literature, typology of use testing, context, prevalence. So you don't need to agree with me. You can critique this and you have a right to. But the point is, I have an organization in my head. I'm just not dumping words and dumping literature. All right. These are somebody's work. I was looking at factors affecting cardiovascular health. When you look at the literature, you find that there are a couple of things. And they say, look, this is where I'm going to map it. Introduction, the psychological factor, the physical factor, the logistic factor, the diet factor, and then you put together and you conclude. So at the back of his mind, he knows how he's going, he knows where he's going, and how he's going. Cash. All right. So, tip for literature review. You got your objective, right? Yes, you agree?
Yes, sir.
It should be used critically. You agree? We talk about that. Factual elements that are not of general knowledge must be referenced. Please don't tell me Nigerian independence is 1st of October 19 and Nigeria celebrates independence every 1st of October. I'll put reference. I'm not sure you need reference. But if you want to reference the day Nigeria did this, or somebody who said Nigeria must be doing independence, or they can, but if it's of general knowledge, you don't need reference. And then cognize your writing. I've told you there are many ways you can use any model. Common mistake: failure to define and identify the most relevant sources to use. Just that you just jump to the market. Any literature I see, I just quote it. Number 2, concentration on secondary resources rather than relevant primary studies. Let me give an example, and this is very common. Somebody will say Nigeria has a population of 200 million, and he will quote the work of Messi, that went to do a work in Elijah. Where did you do your work? Maybe it's my friend, I'm a doing. That's how I ask my friends. So please don't be my friend if you don't want to be. You know, let's see in an introduction, talk about Nigeria as a background. I said, how will you quote Messi? Was Messi the one that counted Nigerians? So you have to go and quote the person Messi quote by checking that one first. Because if Messi misquote, you are going to misquote.
That's true.
That's how lies become truth. You quote him, I quote him, you quote him, I quote him. At the end of the day, they don't even know who started the lie. When I was in the US, 2000, and if I have time, if I go to Ife before this weekend, I will bring this book, or if I find it in my house. There's a book we always quote that gives us the assumption of pregnancies that will be aborted spontaneously. There's a guy who did a life table. I think he published the work 1960 or 70 something. Everybody have been quoting that work. Of course, me, I want to publish it. I have to quote that work. I ordered that book. It's in my house. That's why when the bibliographers and the librarians will tell me sometimes that, oh, this work is 4 or 5 years, whatever, you can't put it in our literature, you can't put it in our shelf. No. They have to satisfy Lucy. There are works published in the 60s that no other work had been published in that area. Because the ethical dimension there was so lax that they could do that work. You can't repeat it today. I ordered the book. It's in my shelf. I want to see what the guy said before I misquote everybody. So always go to the primary sources rather than quoting secondary sources. They said they say. That's how Nigerian Civil War started. You know, number 3, on critical acceptance of other researchers' findings and explanation as valid without critically examining them and evaluating them. Number 4, when people report isolated findings rather than synthesizing to build an overall picture. Number 5, when you look at it, if I include this man's work, he's going to throw sand into my rice. Let me just include the work that supports my. Number 6, lack of description of the procedure you use, particularly when you are doing systematic review. How did you do your search? What number of papers do you find? What do you then do next to lower the number of papers and blah blah blah. Okay. From literature review from literature side to literature writing, some good tips. 1, write sequentially. Tell a story. If you cannot tell a story, if it doesn't sound like a story, write it. Number 2, don't write long sentences. Sometimes I read people's sentences. I've read sentences that are like half a page. I will put them like 3 long. I don't write it long. I read 3 long. Somebody is lying idea. It happens to me too. It's so easy to write long sentences. So when I finish writing, I'll go back and start reading. Because short sentences are more powerful, the ideas are clearer, and the opportunity to understand it is better. So write short sentences. Use paragraph effectively. Don't write 1-page paragraph. I've read 2 pages paragraph. That paragraph starts on page 4. At page 5, I'm saying, clearly. Use paragraph effectively. Some will tell you that if you have 8 to 10 sentences, you should almost be done with a good paragraph. Write in a critical manner. We already said about that. Paint a cohesive and balanced picture. The negative and the positive. Lessons. Check your grammar with available software. I think that's the easiest thing anybody can do. Use Microsoft function. Use Grammarly. If you don't have money for the paid one, use the free one. It won't give you everything, but it will give you enough. It might give you some good and some equity, but it will still give you. Okay? I tell people it doesn't make sense for you to submit a work to me that you have not read critically. I hope I will read it. I don't read it. After reading 3 or 4 sentences, I stop. They've sent me work, part 2 work that I should read. I read like 3 pages and I sent it back. I said, I'm sorry, I can't read this any longer. Every time I read this, it gives me a headache. No, I'm not lying. That was what I told them. I said, as I open a new page, I have a headache. I can't read anymore. Go and look for somebody else to read this. I've read works of kindness of my colleague that I wrote back said, please let this person go and consult an English editor first before you turn to me. I've read works that I have written back and said, I don't know if the supervisor ever read this work before this. So the examiners, the chief examiner, when they send me work, is careful. Because I don't know why that kind of, because if you have not read your work, why should I read it? It's not fair. That is why someone has not read your work. Why are you asking me to read it? So do yourself good. Pay attention to your own work. Do the needful. The little needful, please do it before you ask us to do it. Okay, let's conclude. I'm sure we are done. Now, when you think about this, literature review. Plan, select a topic, organize this, analyze and synthesize, write a first draft, edit and redraft, finalize this. This one can go on several times, can be an introduction process, but this is a complete picture. All right, let's end. Can we read this together? Excellent what? Starting point, not midpoint. Not when you are writing to the middle. Like, I have to now write my. That's why I say, this is. If you work with me, you must show me evidence you have read the literature, because it's a starting point in this whole process. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, take a point. For literature review, we need to poor quality study. No relevance of study topic, poor methodological approaches, low quality write-up, inadequate conclusions. Let's read this together.
Literature review plays a critical role in scholarship because science remains first and foremost a cumulative endeavor.
You are not the first person to have written that thing you're writing. And do notice, I can't find the original work. I found only this guy. So I have to say, this was where I found it. I looked for this guy, I couldn't find him. So if it is wrong, and this guy that said to this is what you should do. This is how to be honest in academics. I found it here, but he said this is mine, I said it, and I couldn't find the man. Okay, some things you can, some references if you like to read. Enjoy the whole day. I will end this with telling you one lie. In my library, there are books only on how to write literature review. Entire books. Complete book. Published on how to write. Why am I saying this? There is nothing that doesn't have a science. And the more you understand the science, the more you can flourish in the area. So be encouraged. Take your time, read about everything you think you know. You can know more than you have known. Enjoy the rest of the day. Any questions? No, I hope it's not about borrowing my books.
Okay, that also actually. Just activity. I know you are good with frameworks. How have you been able to conceptual this framework?
Look, Professor Asa is there. Professor Adedina is there. They're good. I think there's a lecture around concept, framework, and that is.
They must have taken that, yes.
Oh, okay. I have to be, I'm leading a meeting shortly. We have an international meeting online. But when I come back, if I do come back, we can talk about it. But if not, today, do I have another class today? I don't have another class throughout this week. Don't worry. Questions? No, I have to go. When we go out for socials tomorrow, I can find a question. But remember that it's socials. I may refuse to answer the questions. But yeah.
We'll be rounding up tomorrow.
Oh,
So we
are people traveling tomorrow?
No,
Are you traveling tomorrow?
I'm not.
I don't know people are traveling tomorrow.
nobody.
Okay, that's
have
fine.
Left.
Yeah, so,
The travel will now be on Thursday.
no, that's fine. So, tell, who organized the last visit you had? Was it Toyin?
Yes.
Call Toyin.
Okay.
So I just count the number of people in. And Gladys can take care of it.
We had initial presentations yesterday.
Okay.
So we hope
Oh, I was going to come yesterday.
But tomorrow will be the grand finale in case you are not available today. But we need you tomorrow.
We'll see how